Okay, hey everyone. My name's Robert with Command Your Confidence. I'm here with Tino from the Sophisticated Man. How's it going, buddy?
Yes, sir. How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And today we wanted to talk to you guys about how to build yourself up as a man. What mindsets do you need to have to be an alpha male or to be a successful guy? And in your opinion, I'll get you rolling on this. What are some important things that mindsets would you say some guys need to have developed?
hmm Yeah, that's a great question. I think, in my opinion, a good mindset to have is like always focusing on some kind of goal or some some like focus that you have, whether that's like going to the gym right now and you're dedicated to getting a better body, eating healthier, doing better things for yourself in that route, or maybe you're trying to level up your career right now. You want to get to the next stop, the next destination, or the next level in your whatever company that is. So I think the mindset is like always trying to improve, always trying to look at your life as like, all right, how can I get 1% better today than I was yesterday, and what does that look like moving forward? So like, kind of always having like a growth mindset is super important.
Oh yeah, and I agree. I think in order to get anywhere in your life, I mean, even when you're focusing on your goals, you have to have a growth mindset. Because I did a video about this like a couple months ago. Difference between a growth and a fixed mindset, and I think a growth mindset a lot. When you can look at things and have a growth mindset, you can allow yourself to develop as a person. But there are those people who have a fixed mindset, and that kind of keeps them from developing their into the or like developing into what they want or develop their full potential as a guy. And why do you think that is? Why do you think some people have this fixed mindset where they just can't look past
Mhm.
what is possible? Is it
Yeah,
because you believe it's limiting beliefs that they have, or
yeah. I mean, I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. I mean, you brought up limiting beliefs. I think that plays a big role into it. The way that we kind of view ourselves, our own level of like self esteem, what we think we're worth, what we think we deserve in life. That plays a huge
Mhm.
role. And if you think your standards are like very low, then you're gonna be like, oh well, I only deserve like a basic girlfriend or like a basic career. Like I don't think I deserve something greater or better than that. So,
Mhm.
so that could be very limiting. I think it also depends too on your environment. Are you surrounding yourself with people who have maybe a toxic or a negative type of personality, and they're making bad decisions, they're doing things that aren't productive to their growth and their health. If you hang around them, you're going to develop those same habits and those same beliefs. So environment plays a role, your beliefs, and yeah, just like the story that you tell yourself too, right? Like if you constantly think like, oh, it's because I'm, whatever the like excuses like, oh, because I'm 5'6", that's why I'm not going to be successful with girls, or like, oh, because I'm ugly, like I can't, I'm not going to make more money in life or be successful. Like that story, if you keep that narrative going in that way, it can really mess you up. So it's a matter of changing that as well to kind of help you out as opposed to hurt you.
Oh yeah, what I agree with what you're saying, like 100%. You got to hang out with the right people. You got to change the story about yourself. I mean, I
Yeah.
realized that too. Like when I was on my path of self development, and I still get, even though when I'm my story, like change my story, I sometimes go back into my old story. I mean, have you ever seen that in your personal growth at all? And you have to be aware of that.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, sometimes we get into like old patterns of thinking or like old habits. I mean, I definitely do too. Like there's moments when I catch myself if I'm binge eating snacks or if I'm like not feeling motivated to go work out or stuff like that. Like it kind of creates a domino effect. And it's like, oh, I'm already eating unhealthy. I'm already sitting here being lazy. Those negative thoughts they just come back up, and you start thinking, oh man, maybe I'm not like a disciplined guy. Maybe I can't do this. So
Hmm.
those just like, yeah, they creep up on you if you just like sit there and kind of let them take hold of you.
Oh yeah, I know, and you know what? I've worked. I learned you have to be aware of that, like, because
Yeah.
I've seen that. So sometimes when I'm having a sticking point in my life, and I kind of jump back to my old stories, and I have those same beliefs about myself, and I think the good way to deal with that is to be aware of that, like, because if you continue to believe that, then that's where you're going to produce, and you got to when that pops up, you got to just be like, hey, man, I'm all, you got to say to yourself, I always think this way when this situation happens. I was thinking differently about myself. And then it's like, holy shit, this went wrong. And then you go back into the past, and it's just like, and that takes good awareness and then toughness and just being willing to like move forward.
Yeah, you said it spot on, man. I mean, that's why self-awareness is so key in your growth and just in the journey itself. Like, you got to know when you're kind of getting back to some of those old thoughts, or like just kind of checking yourself and being honest. Is like, yo, I'm probably not thinking the greatest things right now. I'm maybe talking to myself in a negative light. Being aware enough to know that you're not doing the things that are going to help you out, like, just, and being honest. Like, that's the hardest part, is like calling yourself out for it and saying, hey, look, I'm not producing what I want to produce right now, and that's on me. Like, it's up to me to change it. So, like, being aware is it's super key.
Yeah. Now, I got a question for you. I mean, because
Sure.
this could happen with anyone. Say someone's putting the work in towards a goal, and they're taking the time, they're hanging them out with the successful people, yet like they're not seeing any difference in the result that they want. And I mean, what do you have to say about that? Because that can sometimes, I believe, cause self-doubt too, because we all get motivated to move forward, and we're putting in the work, we're doing what we're told to do, yet the result is not producing itself. I mean, you could like say you're going out there, you're talking to like 100 girls, and you're not getting a date, but you're doing it, and you're going for a close, or maybe you're working on a business venture, and you're putting the time in, just reaching out to people, doing cold calls or cold emails, whatever it is you're doing, just to get your clients.
Yeah.
And yet, like, nothing's happening. Like, what do you have to? And that can leave someone to self-doubt that things as well,
Sure.
because they're doing all the work and they're like, why am I wasting my time?
Yeah, most definitely. And that's definitely happened to me too before. Like, when you're putting in all this effort and you feel like it's not paying off in the way that you want. I would say that one thing that like has helped me in that regard is just focusing on like the long term goal, or like the big picture for me. Like, if I have a week or even a month where like maybe my views are down, or I'm not getting as many reach outs or leads from my business, and I'm not getting calls, just like reminding myself that it is a process. It's going to take a lot longer than you think it's going to take. Um, and just kind of looking at it in the big picture lens of like, yo, this might take a couple years, even like, several years to really get to where you feel comfortable with the results. And that's why I think like journaling and kind of reviewing your progress on a weekly basis is so important, because you get to see those small incremental steps. Like, even if they're small, like they could be, let's say, for example, you're going to the gym and you're trying to work out and be leaner. Let's say in one week you notice your eating health habits are better. You could track that and say, all right, well, I'm improving in this small area. Like, just when you track your progress, it helps kind of like alleviate some of that stress. You're like, all right, I'm getting small wins. They might not be the exact result that I'm looking for right now, but I could see that what I'm doing is working to some effect. So you can add up those small wins, because eventually
Yep.
they lead into bigger wins.
Yeah, no, and that I agree on that. Like, but sometimes I think we fail to see the small wins.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I remember, like, when I just started working with this coach who was teaching me how to be more comfortable with approaching girls like in public places. Like, it was weird because I was seeing some results from that, but like I expected more results, and
Sure.
when I was expecting the more results, I was focused on that, but I'd focus about what it is I actually did and what I've achieved.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of us like fail to realize that shit. Like, because like we all are focused on the big, we want the big thing. We don't give a shit about the small thing.
Right, right. Yeah, and you bring up a good point too. Like that's why it's so important to be like outcome independent. Like you're focused on the work, you're focused on, showing up each and every day. And if it doesn't go exactly the way that you maybe played in your head, you won't be as let down. You're just like, oh, I don't really care what happens. I'm just gonna show up and make sure that I'm doing what I have to do. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just not being so tied to like the instant result right away.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I know one thing like I'm realizing just with, and because I'm working, I have a few projects I'm doing besides, just working on the girls stuff. I mean, I just started this channel and, got a business rolling and stuff. And one of the things that I'm starting to realize in all these areas, and you can apply this to anything you're working on, is you got to go back and after you take an action in your life, you got to go back and refine it, figure out, like, review it, and then figure out what you can do better next time. And then
Yep.
to
Yep.
implement that and do it again. And because the more you kind of go there and fine tune things, because you're not going to get everything perfect at first. A lot we want to, our egos like think that, yeah, we're going to do this right. I think that's why we get disappointed. I think it's the
Yeah.
ego, or
Hmm.
we, let our egos get the best of us, and because of that, we overlook a lot of things, and we need to go back and like kind of look into the details as to what we did and how we can make it better for the next time. That's what, and that's what I've just been realizing lately. So I'm taking that, into consideration with everything I'm doing right now. Is how can I make, my channel better? How can I approach a girl better the next time?
Yep.
How can I reach out to a potential client through an email blast?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like that's one thing that I'm learning too, is like we can plan all day and execute on that plan, but you got to be able to tweak it and be able to pivot at the right moments, because it's never going to be how we think it is when we get started. Like you could have the
Mm-hmm.
most detailed plan in the world, but when you actually put that to real life action and you're doing it, you're like, man, this isn't exactly how I thought it was going to be, which is most of the time. You have to be able to adjust and go back to the plan and say, all right, what can I change here? What can I tweak maybe in terms of mindset or action, to really help give me that result? So like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you got to always be tweaking it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's just like a big process, just kind of tweaking stuff and doing it better the next time, learning for it. And I think that's like where the real, like, all the fun comes from. But I don't know. Now, I know most people like the magical pill and everything. But do you think if something was given to you very easy, yet you would, like, be like, oh yeah, or do you think it wouldn't be as exciting because you got it easy? Do you think the thrill would die down because you got it easy? You know what I'm saying? Rather than putting in all the work into what you're
Sure.
doing.
So you're saying like if you got something super easy, like you wouldn't feel as fulfilled. You saying?
Yeah, like, okay, so say your overnight business success. Say you just made $1 million overnight. You really didn't have to do any work. I
Mhm.
mean, compared to like having to, if you had to do a lot of work and then you finally did it, like, which,
Right.
I don't know, do you think the thrill would be I mean, I know putting in a lot of work can be a pain in the butt, but,
Sure. Sure.
like, do you think the way you think is, would think about that would be differently?
Hmm. So I think from that, like the best thing about doing the work and having that process and then sticking to it, it's not so much the place you're going, but it's more along the lines of like the person that you become, right? So like you can see that with like lottery winners, like most people that win the lottery, maybe they didn't have their finances in order, they didn't know how to invest, they didn't know how to save, beforehand, but then they win the lottery, they get like $1 million or something the next day, and like most of the time, those people lose all that money, not like after a couple of months or so, maybe a year, and like they're gone, and it's because they didn't have those skills to know what to do with that money to maybe create more wealth for themselves, or to find out ways to invest that money in different ways. So it's like it's a lot of it is the person you become and the mindset you develop, the skills you develop through the process, um, and strengthening yourself. So like, yeah, that's kind of what I take from that. Like it's the person that you become.
hmm Okay, so yeah, we're saying action is very important in helping you to develop a mindset. Now, what about the way for a guy thinks about himself? Because mindset is key too. I believe
Sure.
your mindset determines like who you're going to become. And we were talking about this earlier, like surrounding yourself with the right people and everything. Not because you are who you hang out with.
Yeah.
But to get started though, there's a lot of guys out there, and I was like this at one point until I got super frustrated, who wanted to make a change but just didn't believe it was possible. And for me, it just took a bunch of, to the point in my life where I was just frustrated with it, and I just said, I went full. I just went 100% into everything. Despite I invested a lot of money into myself, working with mentors and everything, just to kind of push me through the process.
Yeah.
So what would you say to guys who may not have the right mindset? Maybe they want to get good at talking to women. Maybe they want to go out and do a business venture. Maybe they just want to be confident about themselves and be social, but they just, based from their life experiences, they just have no clue as to what to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really you kind of hit the head or hit the nail on the head with some of your story. Like, yeah, like I, I take what you have and invest in yourself, man. Invest in mentors, invest in books, invest in courses, whatever you got to do to learn that information. Because if you just don't know what to do, there might be a knowledge gap there. There might be a skill gap where maybe you haven't took the right action, or you don't exactly know um, the right steps to take from where you're currently at. I would say like that's what I've done too. Like just invested in different coaches, different mentors to really help me, and kind of see my process along with the along with me to help me kind of correct some of the things that I'm doing. Um,
hmm
so really just like making sure that you're always kind of learning from people who are, better than you, smarter than you, have done more than you, because that's how you really grow and that's how you learn. So like just, trying to use your resources that are available.
No, and I agree 100% on that. Like, I know, like, I think that's very important if you want to move forward. Is like you have to invest in yourself. Work with a coach or get into some programs and stuff. And a lot of people always use the excuse like, well, they want everything for free. Well, I
Sure.
mean, sure, that would be, in a perfect world, that would be awesome. But I mean, at one point I realized like, hey, I just had some extra money, so that's why I invested in myself. And I believe that like this kind of working with mentors and just getting some courses and stuff, that has like really helped me move forward. I mean, I still have sticking points, but I still continue to see progress in myself.
hmm Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it too is like we just don't appreciate the things that we get for free, and like in a macro level, like how many the like free email newsletters that people signed up for. It's like here's a free PDF, here's a free whatever, free ebook, and then it just goes in their folder and they never open it again. It's like you just don't value it because you didn't put forth that money or that income to achieve it. But where maybe let's say you buy a book or you buy a coaching program or a course that you're involved in, you're like, man, I gotta make sure that I'm here for this, that I take this knowledge, because you put some skin in the game at that point. It's like, yo, this is real. So that's
hmm
that's always a great incentive. Like the investment is essentially like a promise to yourself that you're gonna move forward with what you say you're gonna do.
hmm Exactly. No, that's true, because when you put money down, you're spending a lot of money on something, you're going to take the action.
Yeah,
And I mean, there's some people though who will invest and not take the action, but
yeah, sure.
and that's sad, because like they're I mean they're not only wasting money, but they're missing out on the opportunity to get ahead in life. And I always put, and that's what I always said, like, if I'm putting all this money down, I'm going to do what people tell me, like, despite like how, but the anxiety that I might have to go through doing certain things, especially when I was learning how to, get good with talking to girls without drinking alcohol.
hmm
And I think that's what really, I mean, when you put down the money and the mentors and stuff, I mean, and they listen to them, I think that's what really pushes you and stuff. And I've always, working with a bunch of mentors too, I've always heard some, things like where they always say like, you know what, Rob, like, at least I like how you go take the action. Some of these people, like, again, this goes back to like the fixed mindset.
Sure.
When you hire a mentor, you got to listen to what the mentor is telling you, and you got to like do, and you can't. I mean, we all have egos, yeah, but we got to put our
Mhm.
egos aside because they can see things in us that we may not see in ourselves because we're so blinded.
Mhm. Yeah, you got to have a beginner's mind. You got to go into it thinking, hey, like I'm a student. I'm here to learn. I'm here to take in knowledge and 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 really learn from this guy that I'm getting coached from or mentored by. Because at the end of the day, like you saw something in this person or in this program, in this course that you ultimately admire or you inspire to be like. So it would make sense to be like, hey, this guy knows his stuff. Like I might as well perk those ears up and take what he says to heart because he's going to help you.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what you got to do. And I think mentors will challenge you to do stuff
Yep.
that you're not used to doing. I'll never forget one of my mentors. Like he'd always give me weekly challenges. So like talk to X amount of women each day. But then one of the hardest challenge was I had to go into a makeup store, a Victoria's Secret, and approach women.
Yeah,
And
it's nice.
that was just too awkward for me. I eventually went to the Victoria's Secret a couple of times and talked to a few girls. So I mean, I overcame that challenge, but it was like, wow, I can't believe I did that.
Mhm.
But you have this mindset. You're like, oh my god, this is like weird. I think, you know, mindset is important for growth too, because you've got to be aware of certain thinking patterns that are holding you back. Because you're thinking the way
Right.
you think about things and the world around you and yourself is also going to determine whether or not you're going to be successful. And you got to catch yourself when you're having those, when you go back into your old mindsets. I mean, I'm not perfect. I go back into that sometimes, but I just
Mhm.
have to catch myself again and say, give myself a kick in the ass or something. Like, well, I
Mhm.
can't kick myself in the ass, but I just have to kind of that mental of kick in the ass where I have to just say, got to get up and get rolling again, because like I'm not going to get anywhere in this mind with thinking this way and stuff.
Yeah, and that's a big danger that I have experienced in my life. I'm sure maybe a lot of other guys have too. Is like maybe they start seeing a couple results, they start seeing some success, and like, oh, the coach, I got this. I don't got to worry about it anymore. Like I'm good, and they kind of get complacent and they think, oh, I got all the skills. I don't have to listen to this coach anymore. I don't have to read these pages in the book. I don't got to take any more action. I'm good. I got this result, and they get complacent with that short term success. And it's like, just realizing that like we're all works in progress. We're not, we're never going to be this perfect person or this guy that has it all figured out. Like we're constantly, working to be better, and just taking the approach and the mindset of like, look, I don't know everything, and being a student of life is the biggest thing that I've learned. Is like, there's something to learn in really every situation.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's true, man. Like there's always something to learn in any situation. And I think another thing too, another good, this getting back to qualities, good mindsets to have as a man is just to take responsibility for yourself. Like
Yeah.
you're
Yep.
responsible for what happens to your life. And I've heard this like from a few mentors, but read and metaphorically in some books, and
Mhm.
that is so true. I mean, yeah, no one's going to help you. No one's going to come to help you out. You got to go do it yourself. Like that mentor is not always going to be there for you all the time.
Right.
You got to be able to do it when the mentor's not around. You got to
Hmm.
sometimes do it when you don't feel like you want to do it.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the goal of, I think, at least what I think should be the goal of every educator or every teacher out there is like, if your student can go forward without needing you, eventually that's you did your job. Like that's exactly what you were supposed to do. But if they always kind of latch on as like they as a crutch almost, like they feel like they need you at all times, it's like there's some kind of disconnect there because the whole point is for them to eventually go out and do it on their own. Like almost imagine like like a bird, kind of like letting their offspring go out of the nest and kind of like fly on their own, right? Um,
Yeah.
Kind of just like putting their 2 feet under them. But yeah, like it I forget where I was going with that, but yeah, like eventually you got to do it on your own.
Hmm. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, so, and it's good, when I first got into the coaching thing, I know I was working with my mentors, so like, oh, I'm so glad I can just go to them whenever I have a problem. But,
Mhm.
I had to realize too at some point, hey, they're not going to be around forever. And eventually that's my goal, is to break away from the mentor.
Mhm.
And so, I had to realize, well, hey, I got to be able to, become more independent and do stuff on my own. I remember I think you were talking about something like this on a video you just released the other day about, becoming independent, like not having to rely on other people.
Yeah, yeah. I mentioned that in my one of my recent videos. I think I was
Yes.
talking about like just taking ownership, like just being completely accountable, like for your life and what you're doing. And it's like I like to use the analogy of like a quarterback in a game. Like after a game, after a loss or something really bad happens, you always see the quarterback being, guys, that one's on me. I'll be better next time. Like I'll take the loss this time. And like they always kind of they take the blame, even if they had a great game. Like even if they threw 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. A good leader, in my opinion, is someone who always can look at himself in the mirror and be like, all right, what can I do better this next go around? Like what can I improve in this situation? What's in my control? Um, and just taking full ownership of your life decisions. Like if you if you said you were going to go and approach that cute girl across the street, or you said you were going to reach out to five potential clients next week and you didn't do it, like be honest with yourself. Say, hey, I didn't do it. I messed up. That's on me. And
Hmm.
take the action to correct it. But it takes a lot of honesty, a lot of self awareness, and a lot of humility to look at yourself and be like, "Yo, I ain't perfect, and
Yeah.
this is something that I messed up, and I'm gonna make it better."
Yeah, and it's funny you said that, because I have to use that's how I motivate myself. Because like if I'm not at a certain place, well, I kind of think, well, this is why I said I was going to do this, and
Yeah,
I procrastinated. I got lazy and didn't do that. So
yeah,
yeah, you have to take responsibility and ownership for that, and be like, okay, I'm frustrated because I didn't do this. Yet I said I was going to talk to 5 cute girls like during the week or when I went out, or I was going to reach out to some potential clients. And then, well, I got to do it. Otherwise, you're going to be saying the same thing like a couple weeks from now. And
yep,
we, as guys, have to be responsible. Be aware of that. Like, hey, if we have goals that we want to achieve in life, we can't just put them aside. We can't give ourselves excuses, and we have to look at that when we're not where we're at with our goals, because we have ourselves to blame, and we have to take responsibility to say, okay, yeah, I screwed up, so I got to do A, B, and C to get this. And then the more I do A, B, and C, the more the chances I'm gonna have of producing this result in my life.
hmm exactly. I mean, like it's so empowering to be in that position to be like, all right, that's on me. I can do better. Like if I were to say, well, this is this person's fault that I didn't get a client, or this person's fault that I didn't talk to that girl, or whatever. It's like, well, what can you learn from that situation? You're deflecting some of that blame. It's like you pretty much put all you give away your power, and like you don't have the
Hmm.
ability now to look at yourself objectively and be like, what can I change? You just you blend it all on somebody else. So I think
Hmm.
it's the most empowering position I think you can be in, to really look at yourself like, yo, I got to be better.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you know what? Again, I'm going back to like the whole mindset thing. We have all these, we want to change ourselves. We have this vision of our perfect selves, and we want, who we want to become.
Hmm.
But do you think some guys are kind of working towards that? They kind of like they look at they just kind of get back into their past mindsets and be like, well, I'm not worthy of this and stuff. And do you think that kind of hinders them from trying? Because I know like some people who have gone out and they've tried to do new things, tried to make this happen for themselves, yet they just didn't, because they're like, oh, it's this one guy, like, he would say to himself, he'd go talk to girls, he's like, well, girls don't like me because I'm Indian, because I'm an Indian guy, and girls don't like Indian guys, and they use that as an excuse. And then he tried to like purposely be like one of those bad guys who would just be mean to ladies, yet that turned them off, and they'd just be like, F you. I remember, like, it was so weird. I was out with this guy one time, and just because some girl made a joke, he just said F you and all this stuff, like talking like a badass. And that was just like, it shocked me because I didn't expect that to come out of this guy. And he was just like, oh, screw it, I don't give a damn about it. Like, it sounded like he just gave up on like ladies,
Yeah, like you got a little bitter about it.
Yeah.
And got aggressive. Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes back to you seeing yourself as the prize, and and I don't mean that in like a selfish way, like, oh, I'm better than other people kind of thing, but it really comes down to like you knowing what you're worth and feeling like you deserve, these great things in life that you're pursuing, or just great results, feeling like you deserve those things. And it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, especially if you have, lower self-esteem, or you, like, even for me, like growing up, I didn't have the most confidence in myself. I didn't think that I could start a business or like do anything, like start a YouTube channel. Like, I had no idea that was inside of me. But I think it just takes a lot of like self-reflection and understanding like who you really are, and being like, do I feel good about the person that I am? And if not, like, what do I need to do so I do feel fulfilled about myself? What do I need to do so I am happy with who I am? And make myself feel more confident. So like self-worth plays a huge role into all that.
Yeah, no, that's true, man. There's just so many factors that like kind of come into consideration when you're on that journey. It's like so many things you got to be aware of. So it's like you have to be disciplined as a person, because if you're not disciplined, because it takes great discipline to kind of put everything in order, to have clarity on what it is you want, have emotional intelligence and all that other stuff, to keep holding yourself responsible.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces, and it's a matter of like finding where these pieces fit in your life, and kind of like what we were saying earlier, like taking out the ones that don't fit, taking out the ones that aren't really a good fit for the puzzle anymore, and replacing them with ones that are. So like being aware enough to be like, all right, this action isn't what I want. This goal, maybe it's not what I want anymore, and tweaking it to something that is more aligned with what you currently want. So I think all that really, like you said, is kind of everything kind of comes into play.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and like I think that all starts though when you take action, because I think when you take, even though you don't have to have a plan, if you just lean into action, you find yourself. You eventually will develop yourself along the way. By taking action, being persistent, and then like like we were talking about earlier, refining if something didn't go right, refining what it is you're not doing, having a growth mindset. I think that like I said, growth mindset is very important. Like, I feel sorry for people who have fixed mindsets because like they're I think the growth mindset not only helps people break out of their comfort zone and helps them see things differently, but it helps them grow as an individual. I think that's what's important for success, is having the growth mindset. And I'm fortunate enough to like always have had that like mindset. Like my dad got me into a lot of self-development stuff at a younger age and stuff. And it was like later on when I worked with mentors, but I listened to like Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, Zig Ziglar, just all those guys. And they all preached that, and preached about limiting beliefs and stuff like that. So going into coaching and working with mentors, and even working on my goals, when I run into those sticking points, or when I need to overcome a challenge, I can go back and reflect upon all that, and like I said, sometimes like just because I think we get so distracted as people, like we just forget to look at the little things. We forget the like, okay, we can figure out another way to do this, and like that just comes with discipline.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point too with like distractions, because nowadays with social media and the way things are with like the internet and things, there's just all these different things that can try to pull you away from what's important and pull you away from like your goals and what you need to be doing. So
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
tricky to navigate all that.
Well, and the sad thing about that too, I think with all the stuff and nothing wrong with the media and social media, but I think sometimes it can be bad for people because it shows people, well, hey, it shows people like this person has it better than I do, so I
Right.
can't have it, or I got to be like this person to, get this,
Hmm.
like, and they kind of compare themselves to that, person when they should be focusing on themselves, and you got to have awareness of that. Like, I know, it's weird when I first started YouTube stuff. I was looking at, because I knew some people who just like went over big overnight doing YouTube. I'm like, damn, they literally hadn't been on for a year and went big overnight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, and I'm like, oh crap, I got to do all this work, but I realized, and I got frustrated, but I had to sit back. I had to like not compare myself to that person because I can't like, idolize that person because otherwise that's going to affect me producing the content that I want to do. And it's going to hold me back and keep me from being like energetic when I do my content.
Exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right, man. Comparison is a very, very dangerous game, and it's so prevalent because of social media. It's like so in your face. You see like the guys that are really killing it in business, or they're really killing it with women, or just in success in general. You're like, man, what's wrong with me? Like, why don't I have that yet? Or like, how do I get to this place where this guy is? And it's one thing to be inspired by somebody, but it's another to be like comparing yourself with them. It's like, oh, I'm not as good as this person, or they're so much better than me. And really that's not the case. Like you're you're playing a completely different game. Like the thing that I like to say is like there is no competition. Like you are your own competition. Like the person in the mirror, your bad habits, your laziness, your excuses, your um any negative behaviors are your competition, not other people.
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
just
And
it's
we look, that's the sad thing though. We fail to
yeah,
realize that, and I have to be aware of that too sometimes because we should just be busy focusing on ourselves rather than
yep.
focusing on other people.
Mhm. Trust me, it's the hardest thing to do, man. Because I'm in the same boat with you. Like that was one of the hardest things for me to realize when I started this whole thing. Like I tried to be just like this other YouTuber that I saw when I started. Like I wanted to be like him so badly because I'm like, yo, he gets so many views, he gets all this
Mhm.
engagement, and it's attentive grabbing. So I was like, I got to be just like him. And by doing that, like I almost kind of lost my sense of self, and I was like making content that didn't really feel like it came from the heart, and it was like truly an expression of me.
Mhm.
Um, so like I was totally there as well.
Yeah, I know that. Like, and I think, but you know what though? I mean, I think eventually, like we're talking about, the more you do, like with anything, the more you do it, the more you're going to evolve and you're going to find yourself. Like with your channel, when it comes to your way of talking to ladies, when it comes to your
Yep.
way of communicating with other people. And so it just takes practices and I mean, and life experience so that to have
Mhm.
that realization. I just had another aha moment with my channel because originally when I started this channel, like it was all geared towards like guys and everything. And then I just decided I kind of got sidetracked and I decided, cool, well, I'm just going to do motivation because I love motivation. But
Mhm.
I think like just recently, like, I took this YouTube course and we're talking about niche and then we're talking about finding your passion and when it was in that book that I was taking, and the question was in there, it made me think about why I originally started this channel. And I think I got sidetracked with a bunch of things because I wanted to just reach multiple people. So I just decided, I'm still going to do the motivational stuff, but I'm going to like tailor them out. But I'm also going to do some stuff tailoring towards helping guys out because I've been, and I feel I can do that because I've been in that situation. I have had the experience, and I can show people, by creating content, how to deal with certain issues that happen. When it comes, just like having confidence in yourself, this learning, wanting to know how to talk to women, just working on a side hustle, just dealing with life, being a single guy.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like as much as we try to emulate other people and try to do like what this guy's doing on YouTube or what this guy's doing in business or whatnot, at the end of the day, like you improving yourself and the lessons that you learn in your own experience, that right there is going to be your biggest unique selling position because like no one has your experiences, no one's been through what you've been through, so like you being yourself,
Exactly.
it's the greatest place to be, and that makes you stand out.
Yeah, and I realized like, well, that's why I think I was just shying away from that because I didn't really want to, come off as being like a player or something on YouTube and stuff. But and I realized I can't shy away with that, and I gotta be authentic.
Yeah.
Because the more authentic I'm going to be, the more it's going to show in the content creation.
Hmm.
And I mean, this goes. You can apply this, guys, to like anything. Like when you can discover your authenticity. I mean, that's the most important thing is discovering your authenticity. That's a good, and just being comfortable with being you, and that's going to help you get far with women. It's going to help you get far with business, or help you get far with losing weight, changing your mindset. I'm just being on this self-development journey for the past couple of years. Like I said, pushing it full throttle, man, working with mentors and shit. I realized like that's what I eventually I was taking what I'm learning from other people and just using what they told me. But I realized that you're not them. You are your own you, and you got to discover. And I learned this from Steve the Dean Williams. Like he's a guy I worked with recently. Like, and he preaches about like just being you, finding yourself and getting to know you. And I mean, once you find yourself and get to know you, that's you're able to communicate who you are authentically to a woman, be comfortable with who you are. And when you don't, because you're not going to give a damn if you really know you and don't care what other people think about you. Like I think that's when you're going to shine as a man, is like when you can discover that, and it's a process because like even like I'm starting to be more authentic when it comes to my approaches in my channels. Like I have another marketing channel. I'm gonna do a whole nerdy concept thing I got going on there. I got like a background, like like an art studio, the graphic design studio.
Yeah.
So, but I I thought about that, but I would never have thought about that though if I wouldn't have allowed myself to bring my own creativity and sense of humor. Because I know me, my number one, my strength is my creativity, sense of humor, and determination. So I can use my creativity and sense of humor and my energy. I can be very energetic sometimes. So I have to be more comfortable with that. I was always not I was afraid to be energetic and stuff. And like I just realized what? Some people are gonna like me, some people won't. The important thing, as long as you love yourself, and you're gonna have a lot of people who like you, and you can't please everyone. I think a lot of people want to please everyone.
Hmm. Yeah, you're 100% right, man. Like that's the biggest thing, and people know when you're being real and when you're like putting on this persona or this act of somebody that you're really not. It's like that saying goes, like real recognize real. Like when you can be your authentic self, you find people that genuinely vibe with who you are and what you have to say or the way that you think even. And yeah,
Hmm.
like you're not going to please everybody. You're not going to connect with everybody out there, but I don't think you're meant to. Like you're meant to find the people who kind of vibe the same way, um, and the people that don't see how you see it, or they don't, they're not a part of your path, and they're just gonna naturally kind of filter their way out of your life. But
Hmm.
like you said, man, it's all about making sure that you're happy with who you are and accepting yourself, and you'll find people that will too once you do it.
Yeah, and I realized that too. Like when you start to grow it, I mean, you guys are all. I'm sure you've realized it too. When you start to grow as a guy, there's certain people that you used to like, you used to hang out with, but when you see them again, you're going to be like, oh no, this person's not for me. I don't.
Mhm.
You eventually grow. Like when I moved out here to Arizona from Detroit, Michigan, I really like. I had a lot of friends back home, and I go back right away. Always wanted to see them. but like when I just coming out here for the first time was actually, you know, the first experience of me like being on my own and living on my own. You know, I'm 39 right now, so I've been, you know, I've been here since I was like 35, I think. Um, and yeah, because I'm going on 5 years here, and I realized as I, you know, got to be more on my own and had more responsibility and wanted to think about certain things when I go whenever I go home, like there were certain people that I used to love to see. I just like, God, I don't even want to talk to this person anymore because they're still in the same place and I've moved on. And
Yeah.
I still have a few friends who are very successful and like I still talk with because they, you know, they have been a positive influence in my life and they still are. So that just happens sometimes. And like
Yeah.
even here, like I met a friend. We, you know, when I was starting a single life again after I broke up with my girlfriend, we go out, like talk to girls all the time. Really nice guy, and you know, after a couple of years of that, like he kind of went on a different path with that, and you know, I had my own way of wanting to develop, and you know, I just said, you know, I just can't hang out with you, and you know, I started like a meetup group for single people, and you know, I made a lot of cool friends that way. You know, so it's like,
Yeah, I mean that's just the kind of the reality of life. Like once you really take the steps to be on a better path, to like put yourself in a position to be more successful or whatever that looks like to you, like whatever you do to be a happier individual and to make your life better, you just naturally kind of like you don't relate to the same people as you used to. Because I've had the same experience, like being I still live in my hometown, so like going to like local bars or just kind of seeing people that I've known since high school. It's like a lot of them are they're good people, and don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with
mhm,
kind of filtering off and doing your own thing, but like sometimes you come back and it's like, oh, I don't really have that same type of vibe that we used to because we're kind of on different paths right now, and we're just going different directions in life, and it's again, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that you're always going to be close with necessarily the same people that you were close with in high school or even later on in life in college.
mhm,
You just find more of the people that connect with you and resonate with where you're currently at. You know, once you're on your journey, which
mhm.
I think is a natural thing. It just kind of happens throughout life.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's just 100%. Like I kind of, you know, most of the people I talk with now are kind of in the same path or just got, even they can be doing something different, but they're kind of
Yeah.
at where I want. They have the same mindsets and stuff about things. So, no, I agree. And then it's just like an evolution. Like so
Yeah.
sometimes you know that might change, that might not change. Well, you
Yeah.
just have to see. You never know how it goes with life. You know, and you got that's another thing you got to, as a guy too, you got to be prepared for the unexpected because
Right.
during on your journey, you're going to have things that happen unexpectedly, and you got to learn how to deal with those.
Mhm. Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago. Like, you know, along the journey, you're gonna have something that happens, and you're gonna need to adjust. You're gonna need to kind of pivot and be like, all right, this isn't working, or hey, I didn't expect this to happen. Like,
Hmm.
how do I move forward from here? It's like being able to think on your feet is very very important.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think once you can develop that habit as a person, you won't. Because I remember too, like you know, when I didn't develop that habit, like you know, when the situation did come up, I'd get all panic and I could start to panic. But when you develop that habit of just learning how to just think when certain things happen, you know, just you can deal with situations a lot more better rather than just like thinking it's the end of the world. You know,
Yeah.
and you have to in that even like in your daily interactions with you know people, like if you're talking to a woman, you got to sometimes be spontaneous, you got to be in the moment. You can't sometimes, there's no perfect plan. You got to just when you go into action, you just got, I think it's another, like you got to be spontaneous with
Yeah.
what it is you guys you're going to say to the person or the action you're going to take, and not just overthink it, because when you overthink shit, that just keeps you from taking action.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you're 100% spot on with that. Like it it requires a certain level of presence and a certain level of being here in the moment, in the now. Like you can't be off in fantasy land thinking like, oh, this is great or whatever, like just maybe thinking all these scenarios in your mind. You got to be present. You got to be there to be ready for anything. Because like you could be talking to a girl and out of nowhere, like some dude she used to talk to for years comes up and starts talking to her. It's like, what are you gonna do in that situation? Like, you gonna freak
Well, that's
out?
happened a couple of
Or
times to me too. You just
yeah,
gotta like play along with it. I remember one
you gotta
time
be cool with it.
I approached the girl and like her husband entered the
Oh
he's like,
shit.
oh, I'm married. And then I'm talking, then the husband sit there. I'm like, I jokingly said, hey, I was just hitting on your wife. I asked her up, and then she told me she was married. Then we sat down and we were talking about they were from San Antonio, and I'm like, oh, I have a friend who just moved to San Antonio. Like, what is it
Yeah.
like there? Because I want to go there. So and sometimes though, like the boyfriends are like, it's okay, like,
Right.
oh man, I didn't know she's a girl. She's caught my eyes. You know how it goes, and But yeah, that was one of my biggest anxieties when approaching a girl, if like if she was there with a boyfriend or not. I probably had that happen to me like 10, 20 times, like when I've done approaches. And yeah, you got to learn to be able to think in the moment and not panic when you get into that situation.
Right. Yeah, and like it just comes back to like just being cool and calm and collected, not kind of letting that get to you, not letting your emotions get the best of you. And yeah, like that's why I always preach on my channel like meditation and how important it is to like find your center, find that grounded state, because that's when you're going to do your best work. That's when you're going to feel the most confident in your actions, when you're present and when you're grounded in the moment.
Mm-hmm. And do you think like most like guys they get the reason why they can't find that being in the moment and be grounded is because they're caught up in like their thoughts and stuff and they're not being present. It's when they're caught up in their thoughts, they're over analyzing stuff. Being a creative individual, that was always a problem with me because you create all these scenarios in your head and then it causes you to like feel like this thing about a situation.
Oh, 100%. I'm the same way too. Like I'm a classic overthinker, classic overanalyzer. And I think as creatives, like we naturally kind of think that way because we're always thinking of new ideas or just like ways to do things. So for me, like I've always noticed when I'm anxious or when I'm like thinking of a scenario or playing it out in my head or just too in my headspace, it really prevents me from having a good time. Just being natural and just being calm with the way things are going in an interaction or even in business. Like you can apply this to really anything. Um, but yeah, like those two things are opposing. When you're in your head, you're not in the moment, and when you're in the moment, you're not thinking of things. You're here. You're now. You're in the present. So like
Mm-hmm.
when you practice just finding that presence in yourself and just being in the moment, it really eliminates a lot of that just negativity in your mind or just being stuck
Mm-hmm.
in your head.
Yeah, like, and sometimes too, like when I get that negativity in my head when I'm thinking about something and overanalyzing, I gotta say to myself, well, this happens every time I want to do this situation. So just fucking man up and do it. Like sometimes even if you get in your head, like I learned too, it's best just to go ahead and take the action, like because
Mhm.
you can't let your emotions guide you. You gotta. I
Yep.
mean, you can like especially if you're afraid to talk to women and you have that anxiety and you're
Mhm.
like, I just don't feel like it. I feel like shit. I don't have the energy. You just got to do it because you're going to just use that as an excuse, and that will help
Exactly.
you overcome that habit of using that your fears and the way you think or feel about yourself as an excuse. You just got to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think of it like riding a roller coaster for the first time. Like if you've never done it, you build it up in your head like it's this crazy, scary thing. Like, oh man, I'm gonna die, or it's gonna be this life threatening thing. But once you do it once, and then you do it a couple more times, like, oh, it ain't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
You get a feel for it, and you're not as in your head anymore. It's like, yo, I did this a
Yeah,
thousand times.
exactly. But one thing I still notice that you're doing a lot of approaches, you still have those moments where you kind of get back into that
Oh yeah.
thinking pattern, which it sucks sometimes. It's like crap. I thought I was over this.
Yeah, and I think the great thing with that is like even the most like confident guys in the world, they still have that little inner voice. It's like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this, or like they still have that fear and anxiety. But I think, in my opinion, what separates a guy who's very successful in life, in relationships or whatever, he gets that feeling, but he doesn't let that anxiety or whatever stop him. He uses that as motivation. He uses that to fuel him to take action. Because honestly, like if you think about it, that kind of gives you a sense of like of accomplishment. It's like, yo, I did this in spite of feeling the way that I'm feeling, and I'm still
Hmm.
taking action anyway. And it's that just that alone will build so much self trust, and just like you'll feel a lot more accomplished when you do it.
Hmm. Oh yeah, no doubt. And I have to agree with you 100% on that because, like, I remember I've been in situations like that, and you just pull through. Like, I remember, like, there have been times too where I go out, I do like approach four different girls within like a 10-minute period. Like, it was on a Monday, and I was like, but I just did it anyways because I said I was going to do it. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like really not that bad. Like, and if you don't hear back, you don't hear back, but at least you took the action. And like I say, you go and
Yeah.
refine that.
Hmm.
And I think that's again, that comes with discipline. Like
Yep.
you'll have your moments where you're going to shine like that, but then you're going to have your moments where you're going to doubt this and that, and you just got to do it. And you got to think to yourself like, okay, well, if you're not getting the results that you want with anything, then it must be something that for lack of taking action and you letting your emotions take control of you and stuff like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we always gotta constantly audit ourselves and be aware of like where we're falling short, and even where we're doing well too. Like kind of going back to what we said earlier, like acknowledging when you're doing well, and like acknowledging when you're actually getting some of the success that you're doing, because that's been one of the big sticking points for myself, is like not acknowledging when I'm actually doing well, or when I'm doing the things that I'm saying. It's like kind of on the flip side of like not acknowledging your losses, not acknowledging your wins is just as detrimental, because you're like, oh man, I'm just always going and going and going. Every once in a while, it's good to be like, yo, I did this. Like I'm proud of myself. Like I feel good about where I'm at, and the action that I am taking. So that plays into it too.
Hmm. Oh yeah, no doubt it does, man. Like there's so much. It's
Yeah,
like,
there's a lot.
but yeah, like I said, it takes a while to develop all that stuff, and if
Oh
like you
yeah.
can do that, then yeah, you can definitely move forward with ahead in your life. And I
Hmm.
think that's just the hardest part sometimes for most people is just developing. They can take the action, but they don't have the discipline to do it all the time. That's still something I'm still working on, is having the discipline to do stuff all the time. Because sometimes,
Yeah.
like I told you, I was burnt out last week.
Hmm.
I just was doing too much, and I still did a few things I needed to do, but
Hmm.
at the same time too, I'm like, I just got to take a break from things. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, I just wasn't feeling. It was weird. I just wasn't feeling. But I mean, I'm better now. Like, but
Hmm.
it's after taking rest. But then I guess when you use those times when you burnt out while you're relaxing, just to kind of reflect on things. That's what I'm gonna
Yeah.
like do. Is kind of use that time just when I'm relaxing, just to kind of reflect on things. Because I mean, I during that time too, I just kind of realized. I thought about, well, there's some things that I got to change about this, to about in myself if I want to, do better and perform better.
Hmm. Yeah, and those moments are very powerful. Like sometimes you need to take a step back and get away from the action, get away from the things you're doing and your goals. Like, yo, I gotta just really reflect on myself, and get to the place of um, feeling calm and feeling back to normal essentially. Because like I'll go on vacations periodically, and like we just came back from Vegas not too long ago,
Oh, nice.
and
That's a cool place.
it was a lot of fun out there.
I'm
Um,
only 4 hours from Vegas drive, man.
yeah,
I gotta go.
that's what you were telling me. Um, but like even that, like just we were there for a few days, and that time away from my work and from what the things that I was doing, I used that intentionally to kind of separate myself from what I was doing. And
Hmm.
I've always found that like when I step away and then I come back, I have fresh ideas, I have fresh mindsets of coming back into it. I have more like inspiration, like that fire is almost relit inside of myself. So it's important to have like those periods where you're like, oh, I got to step away, and then when you come back, you're like 10 times better.
Yeah, and I just thought, and that's true. I mean, and I just thought, about what, my stuff I've been doing the past few months. I've just been constantly, just keeping busy, and I realized that's something I got to do is just take maybe like because even on the weekends I'm working, and I think maybe I got to dedicate at least one weekend where I'm not putting so much time into my content or trying
Mhm.
to reach out to customers and stuff, for my web design business. And I think I did, I even told my friend gets on my case. I got a kayak. So I went kayaking for the first
Yeah,
time last year.
that's awesome.
And like my friend didn't, it was my first experience. I'd never done it before, but there were like rapids there and everything. And like, I saw like, I tipped over. I was like, well, I said to myself, I'm going to go do this kayak. And I kept telling my friends, so I haven't done it yet. My friend says he's not going to subscribe to my channel until I, do a kayaking video. So
Nice.
I got to do that though. Now it's going to cool down here soon, which is nice. Well, probably not until September, but I am gonna do that. Maybe I'll do like a metaphor for kayaking and stuff. I don't
Yeah.
know, do a video, but I did realize I should maybe take one weekend where I'm not putting so much effort into my content and just kind of just relax, just do something fun. I mean, I do host like meetup events, but I do that. But I mean, like during the day, because I think that's just really going to help, and I think it's important for us all, like who are working on becoming more successful guys, is just take a break sometimes. If you're just constantly working on something and you haven't taken a break, do that. I mean, if you're doing all these approaches with ladies and you're getting frustrated that it's not going, take a day or two off, or don't do it, and then just kind of use that time to recharge, reflect, and go back into it. I mean, that's one thing I've realized is important too. Like when you're having some setbacks, is you got to kind of take a small break from that. Don't like get stuck
Yeah.
by not doing that again, because if you get stuck, you're not going to get anywhere. But you can use that time just to kind of let go, vent that frustration, and just kind of figure out, well, what can you do better next time.
Mhm. Yeah, man, most definitely. Like it's all a balance too of giving, practicing some of that self love and still doing the things that you genuinely enjoy just because you enjoy it. Like for me, like I'll go on walks through the park just by myself, no phone on me, no technology, because I just love taking walks through nature. And I'll do
Hmm.
that every once in a while just to kind of clear my head, like get away from all the noise of the online space because as creators we're in front of screens pretty much
All
24/7.
right.
So like it's so refreshing to just kind of get away from that every once in a while, like go stroll through the woods or like go walk in a park or something like that. But yeah, it's important to treat yourself every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm getting ready to wrap up the show here, but do you have
Yeah,
any final thoughts you want to give and let people know where they can find you as well, before we end the show?
for sure. Yeah. As far as final thoughts, I'd say the biggest takeaway I probably have for anybody watching is Um, just to get started, wherever you're at right now is where you're supposed to be, and this location is the perfect place, the perfect time right now to get started on your goals, no matter how small that is. Even if it's just creating a plan and getting the thing ready to go take action and do what you got to do. Now is the time to get started. If you haven't in the past or whatever, it's not a big deal. Let's focus on the future, focus on the present, and that's the hardest part. It's just getting things rolling. So um, yeah, that's the biggest thing I could probably share there.
Oh, okay, cool.
Easiest way to find me is just on YouTube. You can find my name, The Sophisticated Man. I got videos coming out Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you want to tune in, you can find my Instagram there, or you check out my website. It's just thesophisticatedman.net, and you can find all my stuff on there.
Oh, okay, cool, man. I'll put later on today when I go, put the tags in for the video. I'll drop in the link to your channel and Instagram and everything, so people can go check you out.
Solid.
So awesome. And then I would have to say yes, guys. Like, I mean, I realize like life is short, and you
Yeah.
should realize that, and that should motivate you to take action. And what we talked about today, as far as mindsets, taking actions, and this like refining stuff and dealing with setbacks, once you can kind of develop the discipline to get, deal with all this, like you can have success. You just got to realize that it takes time. Nothing happens overnight. Yes, we'd like things to happen overnight, but it doesn't happen. And you got to remember too to invest in yourself. Start reading some self-development books. Hang out with people who have the same mindset as you. And if you don't have people, you can look for people like on YouTube or work with a mentor who has what you already want in life and who can like get you there a lot quicker than doing it on your own. But through having a mentor, I've always learned that, yeah, you're going to get, the mentor's going to teach you what he knows, but in the end, like you're going to develop your own authenticity and way of doing things, and that's when you're going to really like shine and kick ass in life. So yeah, and we will definitely be on here again, Tino and I, to do another show. I came up with a few ideas. We'll have to talk later about like a certain time and day where we'll be more consistent with this. But we really like what we're really passionate about what we do, and just like we know we've been there ourselves. And we want to be able to show you guys like how you can just like level up in life and get the results you want in that. So. If you haven't already, guys, please subscribe to the channel here and hit the bell for notifications. And thank you very much, Tino, for coming on to the show today. And I look forward to having you back on again.
Of course, man. I love